What's going on, guys? I'm back with another one. And I just watched a movie called Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. That's a lot of apostrophes. Starring Salma Hayek, Ryan Reynolds, and of course, my boy, once again, Samuel L. Jackson. First of all, I would love to discuss this topic, and I'm surprised I've never discussed this before. Of course, I'm speaking of the dreaded sequel curse, or what I'd like to call the terrible part twos. All right? Because for some reason, it's always been a big risk to make a sequel of a movie that was already a hit by itself. All right? You got movies like Deadpool 2, which in my opinion, it completely ruined the image of Juggernaut forever. And I know there were movies before this that did a great job of that already, but this put the nail in the coffin. It buried his image. Then there's movies like Boondock Saints 2. I have no earthly idea why they continued the storyline just to ruin it. Boondocks Part 1 was already a cult classic. Do not touch it. Just leave it alone. Please. Then we got movies like Belly 2. You have no idea what that is, don't you? Alright? And there's a reason for that. This had nothing to do with Part 1. Not even the same coast. Not even the same rappers. Then there's the king of garbage sequels, How High 2. I didn't even watch this movie. I knew from the cast that this was going to be complete garbage. No. But there are exceptions to the rules, because you have also sequels like Blade 2. And I'll always bring this up because this is a perfect example of that. And there's movies like Bad Boys 2. Surprisingly, was also an exception to the rule. Both of these movies did better than their Part 1s and their Part 3s. Easily. Okay? So my question is now, will Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard be a new exception to the rule? Let's go. Let's find out. Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. For those who don't know, for those who are not aware, you have to be a special kind of introvert. Alright, I'm just going to say that right now. Please get out the house and get some sun. And that shouldn't be too hard to do right now. It's hot as hell outside. You get plenty of it. Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. It's pretty much coming off from Part 1, if anyone had seen that one. Michael Bryce, played by Ryan Reynolds, is still struggling with not having a license to be a bodyguard anymore. And so it's gotten to the point where he's getting therapy for this. And he needs to get away from that lifestyle. And he's annoying the crap out of his therapist to the point where she's like, just get out of my face. Go take a vacation. Forget about bodyguarding, please. So he takes her advice and he tries to get that off his mind as much as he can. But then for some reason he ends up back in the pit. Okay, because he bumps right into Sonia Kincaid, wife of Darius Kincaid, Samuel and Selma from Part 1. Okay, so he's back in the crap. He's back in the crap hard, having to deal with their problems for some reason. They just track him down to deal with their crap. And while all that's going on, they accidentally put an undercover cop in harm. And so now they're tied into a case that they have to help crack for the law. I'm going to warn you right now. If you're saying already, the plot is ridiculous. And I'll get into that later on. But it's just later. Positives. From the first time I laid eyes on a trailer for this movie, I realized that this might have a chance to be at least funnier than the first one. And oh boy, was I right. Okay, from the beginning of the movie, it gives you no time to breathe before you start laughing, because Sonya Kincaid just has the inability to understand what you're not supposed to say and what you're supposed to say in public. Okay, so her mouth is vulgar to no end, and you get a lot more of Sonya Kincaid in this one. And it shows that she's just a big ball of crazy. All right. And I love that her addition to this movie, or more of her, was added to this movie, because it makes for the laughs. It really does make for the laughs. And then when they meet up with Darius Kincaid, you know you're going to laugh some more, because there's this love-hate relationship between him and Michael Bryce still. All right. And that was comedy gold for me, for the most part, for quite a minute in the movie. All right. And I enjoyed all of that. I enjoyed every minute of that. Another positive that I loved, the action. Not a lot of action comedies are able to do this. They're not able to blend the action with the comedy in a perfect way, to where the situations they're put in, the awkward, messed up situations they're put into, they have to fight their way out of it. But at the same time that you're being entertained, you still get a chance to laugh at what all the messed up things they go through. This did that so well. I'll give them that. All right, because the action was there. The action was definitely there. It just had the comedy sprinkled on it perfectly. Loved it. Last positive for this. Anybody who knows how I feel about part one, let's just say how I feel about part one. Part one was carried strong by Samuel Jackson, because I did not enjoy Ryan Reynolds' character. Okay, Michael Bryce was boring, annoying. There was nothing to him. He was like stale bread in part one. But in part two, there's a whole lot more to Michael Bryce. He's actually tolerable. He's actually a tolerable character for once. He makes you laugh. He has depth and different levels to him in part two. And it just works better. That part, his character on that part, there's a lot of development to him in part two, surprisingly, that I enjoyed more than part one. Okay, and it helped. At least with the comedy. Now, let's get to those negatives. My first negative. Remember what I said it was hilarious for the most part? Yeah, that took a low point later on in the movie, because it got to a point where it became cartoonish. All right. There's this running gag in part one where I don't even know if it was a running gag, but he flew out the window. It's in the trailer. It's not a spoiler. It's in the trailer of part one. He flies out the window, and I forget if he does it a lot of times, but he did it on that part. All right. They did it again. They did that again in part two, and then they put more bruises to the scene by having him get hit by a car multiple times. And you wonder, are they trying to make this believable or not? You get hit by a car, the impact to your legs, you're not going to get right back up. This man kept getting back up. What do you do? What are they trying to do with that? That I could not believe. After that happened, like more than it should have, I lost all the seriousness. And I know it's like action comedy, but I still need a little bit of serious mood to my action comedy. Okay, and a little bit. It just went out the window with that. It didn't even care. All right. Another negative. I could not take the villains serious. On one end, you have Antonio Banderas, all right, looking like I don't know what he's dressed like. Every time he popped up, villains are supposed to be intimidating, not make you laugh every time you see them. What were they doing? I chuckle every time. Look at his outfit. It was not working. Nothing about him was scary. And then you have there's another villain in here that's an assassin. And Samuel L. Jackson's character pumps him up from the beginning. He's like, "Oh, that's that guy. He's one of the best. And I'm an assassin. I'm giving him his props." I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he's like, "Oh, he just pumped him up so much." But then all that was debunked as soon as that assassin jumped into action, because he made so many mistakes as an assassin. It was ridiculous. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, man, why did you pump him up? You made him seem like he was a better assassin than you. Like he was something to fear. You are a way better assassin than he is. Why would you do that? Why did the movie do that? It was a horrible assassin. Okay, one of the worst I've seen in years. Their point for doing that, I don't know why. But I really felt nothing for the villains at all. The villains they were barely a threat. The main villains were barely a threat. Okay? A few more negatives. Hold tight. Another negative. This is an obvious one. I've already kind of brought this up. The plot. The plot is completely all over the place. It was just mixed here and there and thrown. It goes to a point where you forget what the original plan of this movie was. Because you have the villain who's trying to blow up Europe or do something bad to Europe, and you don't understand that. I didn't understand it. It just something to do, all right? And that now they have to work for the undercover cops and all this, and that's thrown in there. And it got so out of hand that they just at a point where we don't care if you don't understand the plot. Please just laugh. We don't care about making sense. Just laugh. No. No. I need to know. Remind me again what's going on here. I needed a reminder through the movie. Like somebody to come on the side of the screen and be like, remember, this is what's happening in the movie. I needed that so bad. But that guy never came. Because I forgot what was happening. That's not good for a plot. My last negative. You just heard how I felt about Ryan Reynolds in part 1. Well, it does make sense in part 1 why he's there. In part 2, it completely makes no sense. From what I watched, I don't want to say too much, but Samuel L. Jackson and Salma Hayek's characters, they didn't need Michael Bryce in part 2. This could have been a spinoff about them two. If you wanted to go there. He was completely, for me, he was useless in this one. He was useless in the sequel. It was not needed. And that hurt my head. You're just using him for the butt end of the jokes. That's what your point. That's what you're doing. And that's what they did. And I did not like that because it frustrated me a lot. So I'm just going to jump to this and give it an eh. That's right. I'm giving it an eh. A well-deserved eh. You almost got that. If it wasn't funny, it would have got that hell nah. All right. I need you to press that like button. Share this video. And if you haven't subscribed, you better do it.